Here's somebody not even understand the verbiage of coaching. It kind of makes you wonder about how involved he was. No differently than when he got caught lying about being in Tiananmen Square and then said, oh, well, I confused the dates. Or when he got caught on more than 60 occasions lying about combat and saying, well, I'm a knucklehead. I get confused sometimes. 60 times? You lied about going to war that you weren't in? I mean, we know what that actually is. It's some form of stolen valor or plagiarism or, sociopathy or, whatever the hell you want to tell me. But Tim Walz is making the rounds right now, like a lot of people, because there's a power vacuum in the Democratic Party. There's no serious face of the party. AOC's out there touring with Bernie. They're fighting climate change one private jet at a time. I mean,
what a fraud.
Imagine flying around the country telling people you need to reduce your carbon footprint or we're all going to die. Then passing around the collection plate and flying off in a private jet.
Pay up, suckers.
I mean, there is a part of me, legitimately, whenever I get brought on TV to talk about Bernie Sanders, happened to me a week ago on Ingram. Okay, I think a week and a half ago, we talked about it on Hannity when he showed up to the Coachella and, interrupted a concert to tell everybody the planet was dying. Like, what a buzzkill. Imagine that you're rocking out at Coachella, your favorite band's on stage, all of a sudden the music cuts, and you got this guy, the planet is dying. I know you are having a nice time tonight, but the planet is dying. What a buzzkill. Never mind that the people on Coachella are on so many drugs, they saw Bernie and probably thought Jerry Garcia came back to life. He walked on stage, they're like, all excited. Then halfway in, they're like, oh, wait, it's Bernie Sanders? Who cares? No, wait, who?
This guy's a serious ass.
Anyway, so there's that grifter tour going on. And every time I'm brought on TV to talk about it, I tell you this. I admire Bernie Sanders. I legitimately admire Bernie Sanders. If you're listening on WVMT in Vermont, you're like, what are you talking about, Jimmy? But what I mean is, yeah, he's a grifter. I don't deny that. But the fact that he has found this gullible segment of the population that will pay money to get into an anti-capitalism lecture, brilliant. Okay, selling them books, buying multiple houses, flying around in private jets. It's phenomenal. Listen, if I was 20, I would have loved to have done a campaign called Boobs Are Bad and then flown around the country surrounded by supermodels with big boobs. I mean,
hubba.
It would have been amazing. So, I mean, that's what he's doing. He's getting rich by lecturing young, stupid people about the evils of the rich. That's amazing. It's actually like, I don't get mad at him for that. I really don't. I mean, these people are idiots. But the point is, they're not a serious contender. The establishment in the Democratic Party, the big money donors, are never going to sign off on an AOC Bernie anything. Nothing. You're like, oh, but Jimmy, look at the crowds. What if they have all the support? Listen, people had all the support in the Democratic Party in 2016. Did the actual party let them get the nomination?
The answer would be no.
No, they railroaded Bernie right out of it. 2020, Joe Biden was the fifth best candidate in the polls at best. He won South Carolina. He lost the first four primaries and caucuses. Did the Democratic Party let anybody advance beyond South Carolina?
The answer would be no.
Joe Biden won one primary out of five. And the donors are like, all right, that's it. It's the guy. We can control him. You guys all have to step aside. Who wants a cabinet position? Who wants a speaking slot at the convention? Who wants to write policy for the next administration if he wins? They all got what they wanted and stepped aside. That's how it works.
This is politics as usual.
Straight up. So Tim Walz is out there like Gavin Newsom. He started his podcast. Like Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries, who had a sit-in outside their own office.
That was embarrassing.
Like they had a sit-in Sunday. They sat in 12 hours on the steps outside their own office. Like traditional sit-ins, like the Woolworth lunch counter, where people sitting in and risking actual serious harm to themselves by trying to get integrated counter service in America. These were black civil rights pioneers who sat in. They obstructed something in the name of a cause. The Democrats literally piggybacked off civil rights era tactics, but sat outside their own offices. Nobody was denying them the right to go in. They just didn't feel like working that day. And they wanted attention for the fact that they weren't going to do any work. It was absurd, but they were sitting in on behalf of nothing. The point is, they're not serious people. They're not going to lead this party long. Okay, you hear people like Rahm Emanuel saying they're going to get into the ring. Okay, and yes, you hear Kamala flirting with the idea of either being governor of California or trying to stay nationally relevant. And yes, Tim Walz is out there speaking just the same. They're all doing this for the same reason. They're trying to catch that grassroots traction. J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, he says he hasn't ruled out running in 2028. Well, from the looks of him, he's ruled out running every other day this year. But if you stick with me, Walz is another guy trying to explain why he's relevant, why, we should invest in a guy like me. And here he is explaining it, clip 5.
But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this.
So he was brought on to talk about code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck. Is there any show of hands in the cars across America right now? Is there any white guy who really finds Tim Walz relatable?
Not even close.
Tim Walz with the jazz hands. He looks like a Richard Simmons impersonator. Tim Walz saying AOC runs a mean pick six, didn't know how to load a shotgun. You can tell me that was the sell. But here's the bigger fault with the logic. Get past his mannerisms. Get past the fact that he has the energy of a gay priest. Okay, get past it. It's fine. Okay, the idea that that's what they consider political outreach. It's not, hey, here's a policy that'll lower your taxes, white guys. It's not, here's a approach to the border that'll make your community safer, white guys. Here's a bill that will improve the quality of education for your kids, white guys. Here's an end to the forever wars that you're more likely to die in than anybody else, white guys. No, what the Democrats consider as outreach is here's a guy that looks like you.
That's stupid. Use your common sense.
I've been telling you this forever. Okay, people who believe in identity politics believe you will vote for someone simply because they look like you or they make reference to your culture. Do you remember when Joe Biden played Despacito down in Miami? Do you remember when Jill Biden went to San Antonio and told them they were a bunch of breakfast tacos? You're as unique as the bodegas in the Bronx, even though they're called bodegas. But that passes off to the Democrats as bonding. Hillary Clinton went off after the black vote by doing a black woman impersonation.
I don't feel no ways tired.
And she's like, well, I guess you'll all vote for me now. And that didn't work that year. Okay, so she came back the year she was running against Trump and said what? She carried hot sauce in her purse.
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, no, vote for me. Don't worry about the policies. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about housing. Don't worry about safety in your community. Just vote for me. I referenced something I believe you do. Okay, and that was the Tim Walz hook. But again, it really shows you the flaw in the Democrat logic that that's what they consider outreach. Well, I could code talk to white guys. There is not a white guy alive right now that I know, that I've met, that looks to Tim Walz for compatibility. Not one. But here's probably the comment that should be getting more coverage. It's not the insanity of code talking. And yeah, you could tell me it's Native American stuff and it's some form of racism. I don't really get into the semantics of all of that. I don't care if people appropriate other people's culture and conversation. It means nothing to me. Why? Because nobody is harmed by it and nobody is improved if you get rid of it. It's stupid. Okay? Putting emphasis on what you say over what you do is the worst thing that ever happened to our society. Because the people who said the right things got ahead, even if they were screwing over all of us in the process. The people who said the wrong things might have got left behind. Okay? It's insanity. But let me give you a little more. Here is Walz telling us Kamala Harris is the most qualified person to ever run for office. This is clip 6.
Look, we had the most qualified person who'd run for president in this country's history at the top of the ticket. That in itself should have got this thing won. We had, in my opinion, and you can disagree with me, I think history will prove me right, a very unqualified person on the other side.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Kamala Harris is the most qualified person to ever run for president?
That is a fact check false.
Woo! And especially if you compare it to Trump, just compare it to Trump. We don't have to go back far in history. We're thinking about senators or governors or presidents who've run for re-election, anything like that. okay, secretaries of state in Hillary Clinton's case. Kamala Harris, her legacy right now, if it all ends right now, is she's the only woman to begin her career and end her career by blowing it. Okay, one of those involves an election. The other involves Willie Brown, but stay focused. Understand this stuff gets a little dicey, but it's real. Okay, Kamala Harris's qualifications were she's on the ticket because Joe Biden said in the 2020 summer of 2020, they would not be considering anyone but a black woman for the role.
That's not right.
It's not even legal. But they announced, up. We remember Kamala Harris ran against Joe Biden. When she dropped out of the 2020 election cycle, she was polling behind my milk. She was below 1% when she dropped out of the race. Below 1%. Got no votes. None. Didn't even make it to the caucuses. None. On the debate stage that year, if you remember, she called out Joe Biden at the first debate because he was fighting against integrated school busing. She told the story of the little black girl that wanted to get on a school bus, but Democratic politicians at the time, like Joe Biden, were fighting against integrated school busing. And she said, well, Joe Biden, that little girl with me. So she called him a racist. She called him a rapist a few days later when Tara Reid accused him. And Kamala Harris famously said, these women should be heard. I do believe his accuser. I think there should be an investigation. Third day, Joe Biden was like, hey, how would you like to be vice president? And she was like, I'm in.
She is a fraud, a phony, a woman without a moral core, a regular two-faced, mealy-mouthed politician who swings with the wind.
But you understand from there, as vice president, she was named the border czar and presided over the worst border invasion we've ever seen in the history of the country. And then got called out on national TV for lying about going there to combat the issue.
We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Oh my God.
Kamala is so stupid.
But the idea that Tim Walz gets out there and goes, no, she's the most qualified person to ever run for the office. But she's not the most qualified person to ever run water, like turn on a faucet. Like she's a dope. But the idea on their side of the aisle is to continue to cater to identity. Well, we're the most qualified person ever to run. That alone should have been enough to win the thing. So what is he really saying there? Well, it's clearly because she's a black woman. You know, he's making that comment. You had me. I sewed up the white guy vote. Yo, Democrats lost the white guy vote 60-38. That's how bad they lost it. So if he was brought in to secure the white guy vote, he turned out to be about as useful as the tampons he put in the men's room. Joining us now is a man who has just written a book. This isn't even a book. It's a stick of dynamite. It's called The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. Jersey Joe Concha in the house via Skype so we can see each other and hold up the book and do all the fancy stuff. What's up, man?
How are you? We got like a mirror image thing going on here, This is good stuff.
I'm digging that. And I don't. When you say mirror image, not the kind of like Hunter Biden mirror image where we're doing rails on a coffee table. But if you stick around, the third hour of the show gets pretty You don't know. So Concha, I want to give you this. Obviously, I knew a lot about this project, and you were here telling me about the time you spent at Mar-a-Lago. Do you know the one thing about this project I did not know? I did not know the genius of the back cover of the book. I've seen all of these promos. So for everybody listening around the country really quick, he has quotes on what's going to happen in the election from everybody. Okay, like here's Bill Maher. He's definitely going to lose. You can just feel it. I promise you. Just don't worry. Don't think about it. I don't think about it. And this goes on for 10 people. And the last guy quoted at the bottom is a fellow by the name of
Joe Concha.
Joe Concha for the win. And we were there. We were saying this. I didn't write the book. You deserve all the credit here for that. But the point is, there were people on the other side of this that I do think were shocked by his election. But if you read the book, as you sit here and break it down, like when you talk about, the Joy campaign skips comedy night and all that stuff, if you actually read this chapter by chapter, him winning the election reads like the most obvious thing that's ever happened. It's like a dog chasing a tennis ball, is it not?
Oh, perfect analogy. Yeah. And the last quote that you're talking about, where I say Trump wins this quite easily, save the tape, play it back if I'm wrong, this is how this ends. I said that in October 2024. And I said it, Jimmy, after they had these internal polls for the Teamsters, right?
Yeah.
And when Joe Biden was in the race, Biden was winning the Teamsters by like 10 points with the rank and file.
Yep.
Then Kamala goes into the race, and then Trump's up 30 among the rank and file and the Teamsters. I'm like, whoa, if he's winning union members, United Auto Workers, U.S. Steel, restaurant workers, if he's getting that block and he's getting more black voters and Latino voters, who's left for Kamala outside of the infamous childless single cat ladies? And that's not enough to win an election. I'm sorry.
White dudes for Kamala. Do you remember the Zooms?
Them too.
That was the harbinger for me. I remember talking to you over the summer. I remember we were saying, like, isn't it crazy how everyone voting for Kamala or endorsing her isn't even willing to go to a public event? They'll only do it over Zoom. I'm like, that's a bad sign. These guys won't even put on pants to endorse Kamala Harris.
Wow. And but actually, there were people that did go to her rallies, but she had to pay them, right? Yes. So $2 million for Eminem, and who else? She had Beyonce, and Beyonce didn't even perform at one of her Texas rallies. She just spoke for 3 minutes, and that was the end of it. Everybody walked out like all pissed off.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you spend $1.5 billion in the matter of 100 days, but the Kamala team did it, and they ended up with a deficit, believe it or not. Imagine how she would have run the country, the economy.
A billion
and a track record.
$1.5 billion in 100 days. Now, to be clear, half of that was the bar tab.
That's true.
It's a lot of boxes of wine. But the book is called The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big, Beautiful Campaign, written by our own Joe Concha. It's interesting, but if we're going to bounce around, okay, because two things are relevant right now. I mean, both people on the ticket, because they both spoke yesterday, essentially to remind America why we didn't elect them. Tim Walz, will start there, okay? I know the chapter is The Midwest Dad that wasn't, and it's fantastic. The whole code talking to white guys, as egregious as that sounds, it was the next sentence that got me. It was when he said she was the most qualified person who's ever run for president. Did you hear that in the Walz clip yesterday?
Yeah.
That's more damning than anything.
Qualified. All right. I guess she was a U.S. senator in a blue state. She was a San Francisco prosecutor that locked up a lot of black men for weed. Then she endorsed open borders and compared ICE to the KKK. Then she was the most ineffective vice president. She's the lowest polling vice president in history, even lower than Dick Cheney, who literally shot a guy in the face, while he was in office. So when you can accomplish that, but Walz, man, the thing that pissed me off most, Jimmy, as a degenerate and a big football fan, is when he's playing Madden Twitch against AOC, and he says, that AOC sure could run a mean pick six. And I'm like, you can't run a pick six. It's organic.
I was saying that.
Jumping the route. There is no play for this. You're not a coach. You can't be.
It's not a 4-3. It's not a cover 2. And that's when you understand, like, when you saw the verbiage was off, though, you're right. It's like, it's like when a politician goes to a town and gets their sports team wrong, that discredits everything that's going to come out of their mouth from there. And when you caught him lying about football, I mean, we'd already known that he lied about his military record in Tiananmen Square. Yeah. But there was no calling yourself a knucklehead and getting out of this. That was a doomed ship from word one. And
Walz actually gets 2 chapters. That's how bad he was, And the JD Vance debate, no one pays attention to vice presidential candidates or to the debate, but I think that was a huge turning point in this election, because suddenly JD went from looking or being told that we were told he was weird. That's what got Walz basically the nomination. JD looked quite normal, quite smart, quite prepared. And Walz looked like the deer in the headlights, goofy 80s sitcom dad, weird guy. That's when Trump and Vance looked like the normies, and Kamala and Walz looked crazy. And I think that played a big part in this as well, because common sense and the normies won, and crazy and chaos lost.
Well, that's a true story. The book, it's called The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big, Beautiful Campaign. Me and Joe Concha are talking about it. There were so many plays that were made in this election down the stretch. I think Vance's best contribution to Trump winning was he was so good against hostile media. And there were so many viral plays he made. Obviously, in the debate, it was the face he made at Tim Walz when Tim Walz was lying, and that became every meme for a month and a half. But of course, when they were talking about it's only a handful of buildings that have been taken over by migrant gangs, No one was listening to themselves, which brings me back to the cover of your book. If no one was paying attention and they really got to this place where they were just running on their own confirmation bias, but no one agreed with it, and that's why they were so blinded by the outcome. Because some of these other clips you wrote in here, I had even forgotten. Like the Rick Wilson one's so great. And I understand he's a grifter. It's a Lincoln Project. You know, Trump's going to lose. He's going to lose badly. He's going to be wrecked. You know, that's a guy just rage baiting people on Twitter. But I think that is what a lot of them believed.
Oh, yeah, I think it came from the heart. I think they honestly thought that Trump was going to get smoked in this election. I like the Bill Kristol quote. You know who's not going to get the credit they deserve? Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Liz Cheney, and tens of millions of women who will be responsible for defeating Trump. I mean, think about what Kamala did. Her closing argument was to go on tour with Liz Cheney, who no one likes. Republicans clearly don't like her. She lost by 50 points in Wyoming. Yeah. And, you know, her dad lied us in the war with Iraq and everything. And Democrats don't like her either because they still see her as a warmonger. So just every decision they made, like not choosing Josh Shapiro to be the running mate when he's at 60-something% approval. Yeah. I mean, that was the 2-inch putt that they missed as well. And Trump seemed to do everything right. And, you know, we mentioned the cover of the book with Trump at McDonald's. Yeah. You know, I asked him about that, and he said, "Oh yeah, that was one of the most important moments of the campaign because that photo went viral to places where they're not watching CNN.com or visiting Drudge. It got to non-propensity younger people who thought it was hilarious, and it was shared more than like any photo of the year outside of the assassination one. Meanwhile, Kamala would do a speech at the Ellipse, and it would be seen as an important address to save democracy, and it was forgotten like 3 minutes later because that didn't go viral. McDonald's did, and the garbage truck was big as well, Jim.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And you know when the garbage truck happened? It was Game 5 of the World Series, and the Yankees wound up getting knocked out against the Dodgers.
Right.
I was sitting there watching it. He was driving around the airport in the garbage truck when he had landed, I believe, in Wisconsin. And, if you want to know anything about the Faillas and how we do Yankee Stadium, we're loyalists. To this day, we park in the OG garage by where the old stadium is. Do you remember Yankee Stadium, the garage up the first base line? So you'd basically, if you came down the stairs, you'd either be on River Avenue or you'd be at the bat. And we still park there to this day. And so I was there waiting for the rest of my family to come down the stairs, and I was watching him in the garbage truck. And I was like, oh, this guy's so going to win. Like, what are we talking about here? Because it was the zeitgeist. And I think it's funny, but you know, people don't make the comparative often. But he won in a similar way to how Obama won. And what I mean by that is he was demonstrably just the cooler ticket. You know, obviously, substance-wise, he was better than Kamala, and he was a proven commodity as a president, and he had that, and obviously the assassination attempts, the impeachments, and everything that had worked against him. But what it all made a meatball of was the zeitgeist. He was the guy. He was the brand. That's where he got the black vote from. It was just cooler to vote for him because people realized the other side were the hall monitors who were guilty of every crime they were accusing society of, were they not?
That's so true. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing I say in the book, that you could tell who was going to win by who was having the better time, right? And we went from the summer of joy and Brat Summer with Kamala to they finished pretty angry there at the end. And speaking of, you know, great sports stadiums and arenas, I was at Madison Square Garden, you know, with the Trump campaign, obviously to cover that rally. And I never was around more happy people in one place since my final Cancun in '93, and I got some stories about that. Jimmy, believe me.
Listen, honestly, I was bringing you here to plug this book, but if you remember anything about a trip to Cancun, you deserve applause for that just the same.
Good point.
A better man than me, Joe Concha. Next time we'll discuss hedonism. This was amazing. And to be clear, we won't discuss hedonism. This was amazing. The book is the greatest comeback ever inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign. Joe Concha, take a bow.
Taking a bow.
See you soon, bro.
We never do this. All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
Fresh off. Probably in the history of slots and sluts, that was one of the wildest nights we've ever had.
It was unbelievable, Jim.
How great was it?
What an incredible, raucous, hungry. They were hungry like the wolf.
Hungry like, to quote Duran Duran. Yes. They were hungry like we were at that Ruth's Chris Steakhouse before the show.
Which was phenomenal. So if you're in Mohegan, PA, you know, go visit the slots and sluts. I'm sure they have plenty in equal measure. And also stop by Ruth's Chris.
That Ruth's Chris was amazing.
So it was still Lent for me, so I wasn't eating meat until after midnight. So I had the lobster, which was one of the most glorious things I've ever had in my life. The burrata salad and the lobster, I have to say, like, I always order wrong. Like, I always order bad. And that was, I nailed it. I was like Simone Biles.
Stuck to landing. You know who might have ordered wrong? The fabulous gentleman, Vince Benedetto, Bold Gold Media, who had us to dinner and then made the mistake of putting us on radio afterwards. That you're supposed to put us on your local radio station before the drinks are served, Vince, if you're listening, and I know you are. That was my favorite thing in the world. We got there, we probably drank for an hour, we ate dinner, and he's like, I got you guys on the radio at 6. I was like, wait, what? Yeah. I was like, well, this ought to be good. And away we went. Yep. And we did the radio. Did well. We weren't invited back, though. They're inviting us back for comedy.
Yeah, he sent me, like, I've never gotten a disinvitation, like a lifetime disinvitation, but the radio station sent me that. It's like, please, whatever you do, don't ever, ever, ever come back.
Please don't come by our radio station. We don't care. Kennedy's here. We're laughing. I was just talking to a guy named Ace from Alaska. Pretty cool guy. He was talking about AOC's presidential prospects.
Are you on in Alaska?
We're on everywhere.
Damn, Skippy.
200. We're on
Nicely
everywhere.
done.
There's only like one talk station there. I don't know. He might even be listening on the app for all I know. I don't know. I don't ask a lot of questions. Ace got on the line and told me, he told me he thinks AOC is hot, so that's part of the appeal for Ace. He's like, the only Republican, he said, is Tulsi Gabbard he'd go put her up against. And I was like, dude, I'm trying to have an election. You're trying to have a wet t-shirt contest. I'm like, come on, Ace, focus. But you're up in Alaska. You know, you get a little randy. You got a lot of free time on your hands.
Well, they say in Dutch Harbor, there are as many women as there are trees in Dutch Harbor. And at first I was like, oh, it's Alaska. There's got to be a lot of trees. And then I looked around and was like, there are no trees. And the guy was like, yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Well, listen, no one ever believes, like I used to tell people this about driving a cab. I was like, there are guys in my taxi garage that say these Middle Eastern dudes were shagging goats. Like, that's a thing. And we obviously say it as a joke. You know what I mean?
I mean, they are. Have you ever seen a goat look at you? Yeah. They're very seductive.
You got to see these goats. You know what else you got to see? Rashida Tlaib. If you see Rashida Tlaib, all of a sudden the goats make a hell of a whole lot more sense. You know what I mean? Remember that whole song? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Kennedy's here. We're excited. AOC.
From the river to the sea! Bring me a goat.
Exactly. The goat's not going to try to blow up your Jewish neighbor.
No.
It's not going to block anyone from going to class at Columbia.
No.
For all we diss the goats, but you know what? They're probably the way to go.
Pretty loyal, supple.
Yeah, they'll eat anything. You don't have to worry about garbage. Supple. They'll eat it. Supple. It's way too early. But I do consider AOC formidable. I think her policies are terrible, but she's an Instagram influencer with a side hustle in Congress who has a formidable following.
Yes.
But I think what it comes down to, and I was explaining to young Ace, who is very, very passionate, okay, is that ultimately I think in the Democratic Party, the nominee is going to be whoever the donors want it to be. Because that's been the last 3 general elections.
Yeah.
And that's what I think AOC is going to run up against, is that there's this internal battle taking place right now between young Congress and old Congress.
Well, that's what Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker were trying to do this weekend with that ridiculous sit-in.
Having a sit-in outside their own office.
Yeah. And you and I were talking about that Monday morning on America's Newsroom. And what they're doing is positioning themselves against AOC. Like, they are trying to mark their territory in the Democrat Party, which created its own vacuum with Joe Biden, who wasn't in power. So, it's like, even if people were operating behind the scenes, every blowhard in Congress thinks they're going to run for president.
Yeah.
And they're like, no one's running my presidency. I am going to be the one. I'm going to be the face of the party.
Yeah.
At least AOC has a face. Many of them are, physically unattractive, to Ace's point, but also they have unattractive ideas.
Yes.
At least AOC has ideas. They're horrible ideas.
They're so bad.
They would ruin the country.
Amen. But the way they work for her is a lot of young people gravitate towards them, as stupid as they may be. And I think that's, where she's potent, is people who don't understand basic economics think eat the rich is a good thing. But the basic ethos of the American dream is like, people don't migrate here because they hate the rich. They migrate here because they want to become them.
Yes. And that's what democratic socialism doesn't understand. They're incredibly jealous of wealth. They don't understand the people who aspire to not have money troubles.
Yes.
Because that is the source of 80% of people's stress.
It sucks. I mean, take it from a former cab driver and a future one, the way this interview is going. Kennedy's here. We're loving it. So far, so good. Everybody's really excited. So one of the things I've enjoyed, and I know you have as well, is there's this exercise in retroactive ass covering going on in the media. Chuck Todd talked about it. He's like, I reject the premise that we were asleep at the wheel on the Biden thing. We were just lied to.
Where were you,
by the way.
Chuck? If you were Alex Thompson, if you were the only person bravely reporting about the president's decline, you'd probably still be the host of Meet the Press.
How about that? So I'm going to give you a thread. Drew Holden, I don't know him personally, but he makes these nice threads. These are like headlines he posted on Twitter because he was talking about, everybody's out there saying, we had no reason to believe there was anything wrong with the guy. Which, time was if you had a friend shake hands with an invisible person, you just waited till the weed wore off and you thought, think about that. Here's a great one. This one is I love this one. This is Washington Post. This is June 15th, so 12 days before the debate. Cheap fake Biden videos enrapture right-wing media, but deeply mislead. But did they deeply mislead when actually they led properly. When Obama grabbed his wrist, he led him. It wasn't misleading, it was leading off the stage.
So Karine Jean-Pierre tried to say that these were cheap fake videos, meaning they were AI generated. This is not what really happened, and it was disingenuous and false. And the problem was, they're being shot from 20 different angles, showing the exact same thing. You don't have 20 different people putting their mobile phone videos through an AI generator. That's just not happening. But that really happened. Like, Biden was, sadly, a bumbling corpse. And if you paid attention, you could see it. You didn't even have to look for it. It was right there. But the excuses they made and the outlets that carried water for the administration with those bad excuses, they should no longer be working in media.
Yeah, they shouldn't be employed. This is a great one, this New York Times. The 80th anniversary of D-Day quickly became the latest example of the fast spread of politically damaging, manipulated videos, highlighting how the politics of misinformation and conspiracy theories do not stop at the water's edge. But it's like I always say, like, we're living in the death of shame.
So tell me, so that person who wrote that a headline and whoever authored the piece, tell me which one was fake. So that's how you debunk that. Show me the fake one, show me the cheap
show me
fake,
the real one.
and then show me the real one next to it.
Amen.
Show me Biden under a Smith bar lifting twice his body weight.
I loved those stories. How he's described as sharp and focused behind closed doors.
Well, why don't you put some cameras behind closed doors so we can see that?
Yo, I got a really hot girlfriend. She just don't live around here.
She wear baggy stuff in public, but when she take off that baggy sweatshirt, she's a 20 and a half.
You're right. This is my favorite one. This is so good. Okay. This is the New York Times. Woo! This is the headline. For Joe Biden, what seems like age might instead be style. Byline. In this respect, the president has something in common with Beethoven, Wagner, and Martin Scorsese.
Oh, I remember that one, yeah.
He's Beethoven.
Yeah.
He's the dog Beethoven from those movies who sniffs people. He's Beethoven.
He's more likely to sniff butts than author a concerto.
It's a great one. Trump campaign seizes on misleading video to criticize Biden's mental state. Fact check. And this, of course, was labeled by ABC false. No, his mental state is fine.
Yeah.
Joy Reid. Nefarious. Fake news on Biden's age pumped through local outlets by right-wing controlled media. You tell him, Joy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And she, on some level, she can't believe that.
Yeah. That's the larger point, is they don't believe it. No. That's why when they say they got it wrong, I hate it, because it implies that they made a good faith effort to get it right. They didn't make a good faith to get it right. The White House was like, no, you get no press conference. Oh, you want a press conference? Fine. He gets to pick we get to pick the questions.
Yeah, it's going to be 30 minutes.
They're on a note card.
He's going to call on people because they still want access to the president. So obviously they have given Karine Jean-Pierre their pre-written questions. They can deny it all they want. And they can say, I've never given anything to Karine Jean-Pierre, but, maybe gave it to a deputy comms person.
It's all semantics.
Exactly.
I've never pre-submitted a question to Joe Biden.
They said the same thing about the Kamala Harris debate.
Yep.
Lisa, what's her name from ABC News, who was a sorority sister with Kamala Harris, not at the same time, but they were in the same sorority. And they were like, neither of these anchors has ever spoken with anyone. And it's like, yeah, but what about an intern? What about a family member? What about a go-between who knows both parties? Because that was the only time in Kamala Harris's 25-year career that she appeared cogent.
Thank you. Are you ready? And you're right. I remember you saying that. I remember you saying, you're like, maybe she's sobered up for real because she realizes if she's going to do this, she's going to have to read her briefings and apply herself. So
it was the only time she appeared sober.
AP, 6 days before the debate. This one's so good. Seeing is believing? Not necessarily when it comes to video clips of Biden.
Yeah, they really just ran with that. So the White House got together, issued talking points, and they were like, you want access? You put this out.
Do you want theirs the morning after the debate? Same AP. Why was it a surprise? Biden's debate problems leave some wondering if the press missed the story. I mean, the balls of these
and
people.
Then the AP, obviously, highly partisan now, not necessarily historically. And they have had their precious seating in the White House briefing room rescinded.
Yep.
So, and it's because they're partisan, and any White House communications shop can do it. We saw how the Biden White House tried to manipulate the press, and at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the AP got a standing ovation.
Oh God, why? For refusing to say Gulf of America?
Yeah. And it's like, shut up. Just shut up.
It's Watergate.
Yeah.
We're not calling it that.
And everyone, just these self-important circle jerkers, applauding the standing ovation. And then Alex Thompson stands up and was like, we got it wrong. And sometimes we are wrong, and that's bad. And everyone just sat down stone-faced. Like, how dare you? Like, he's the only truth teller in the room.
But it's crazy to me that anyone sees the value in pretend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's pretend. It's when they said he was fine, they were pretending. They knew he wasn't fine. There's nobody, bargaining with you in good faith that didn't have a concern in 2020. And do you know how that Ron Klain story came out now that everyone's willing to write a book about this? About how someone came in and applied for a job on the campaign. There's two great ones. The guy who came in to apply in a 2024 campaign and said, well, you guys don't have COVID. He can't campaign. He couldn't campaign in 2020. What are we going to do now? The fact that means it was a known thing back in 2020 that they had acknowledged.
Oh, thank God. We can put a lid on it because the world is dying.
And then the Ron Klain one. He's like, I showed up. I'd never seen him that out of it. And he said that he was tired. He was going to take a nap. And he jumped in the pool with his clothes on. I'm like,
what?
That's the Ron Klain story. He went and jumped in the pool. He said he was going to take a nap. Do we know what's the name of the book? It's not the
There's Fight, Uncharted, and Original Sin.
Hold on, I'm going to Google the exact excerpt.
The Jake Tapper book.
Hold on. I'll find it right now.
Uncharted is the Chris Whipple book, and Fight is the two.
I got it coming. Don't worry. It's Whipple.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Whipple. President being exhausted and out of it during debate prep and disengaged. Said he was... All right, here it is. Let me see if this is the full quote. I was unaware of what was happening in his own campaign. Halfway through the session, the president excused himself and went off, said he was going to take a nap and went off and jumped in the pool. Doesn't say if he kept his clothes on. But the point is, a few minutes into debate prep, he went and jumped in the pool.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Yeah, go have a little swim, Grandpa.
At his first meeting with Biden...
Hydrotherapy.
At his first meeting with Biden in Aspen Lodge, the president's cabin, author Chris Whipple wrote, Klain was startled. He'd never seen the president so exhausted and out of it. Biden was unaware of what was happening in his own campaign from a policy standpoint. Halfway through the session, the president excused himself and went off to sit by the pool. I mean, it's fantastic. The president was fatigued, befuddled, and disengaged, Whipple wrote.
Yeah.
Klain feared the debate would be a nationally televised disaster.
Hallmarks of someone with dementia.
Yes. Are you ready for the rest? This is the rest. The first session was scheduled to last 90 minutes, but Klain called it off after 40. The president's voice was shot, and so was his grasp of the subject matter. All he really could talk about was his infrastructure plan and how he was rebuilding America with 16 million jobs. He had nothing to say about his agenda for a second term. Klain, according to Whipple, said the president was irritable as he pushed back on the former chief of staff's suggestions. 25 minutes into the mock debate, president announced he was done for the day. I'm just too tired to continue. I'm afraid of losing my voice here, and I feel bad, Klain said, according to the expert. I just need some sleep. I'll be fine tomorrow. He went off to bed, at which point he jumped in the pool.
Wow.
Woo! How are you, Chuck? Hawaii? Shoot, I'm supposed to be in Oklahoma. It's all Hot Shots. He was the Lloyd Bridges character in Hot Shots.
God.
More slots and sluts are coming, folks. Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
This was, I'll see you.
Lean into it.
Saturday night, I'll see you on TV Saturday night.
Yeah.
Me, you, and Mike Rowe.
We won't have the slots, but.
Oh, will we ever?